Hello, and welcome to Rocket Fuel, your daily update of everything that's happening in the Rocket Pool community. My name is Wack. Today is July 1st. Wow, July 1st already. Anyway, we've got a jam-packed episode for you, full of SEC lawsuit against Consensys that mentions Rocket Pool like quite significantly. We're going to be talking about tokenomics. There's a whole lot going on with that. We're also going to be talking about the grant period ending and some news that's come out of that, and we're going to talk about the ETH ETF as well. So stay tuned because we've got a whole lot to cover.
10, 9, ignition sequence start, 6.
Okay, so the first place we're going to start is this news that came out of the SEC, and this was on the 28th, so on Friday, and sorry I missed Friday's episode. I just didn't have time to record it, just the way the day worked out. But this news came out, and it's kind of like big news in the Rocket Pool community that the SEC basically are suing Consensys. You know, they had a lawsuit, well, they had a Wells notice sent out to Consensys a few weeks ago, and in that lawsuit there were a few different aspects. One of them was that ETH itself is a security. The second was that MetaMask had staking things in there that were securities, and trade swaps functions made them a broker-dealer. So there were a couple of different facets to the Wells notice. A couple of weeks ago, you know, the news came out that the SEC wasn't going to be pursuing the charge against Ethereum as a security, but you know, Consensys were really happy about that. But then the SEC dropped a lawsuit on Consensys saying that the MetaMask stuff is dealing with securities, and as part of that, what they did was they mentioned Rocket Pool's rETH and Lido's stETH, which are the two staking tokens you can get from MetaMask. You know, you can swap for those MetaMask, and they said that these were securities offerings, and you can see the text of the lawsuit here, and it's 61 pages. And if you have a look at it, like they mention Rocket Pool in here. Wait, let me see. Oh, it's not letting me search it on my thing, but I think there's like 70 or 80 mentions of Rocket Pool in the lawsuit. So it's kind of a big deal, right? People were like, what's going on? And I think some of the price action from last week, there was a drop going into Thursday and then on Friday for the RPL token. I think that was related to this mentioning of Rocket Pool in Consensys lawsuit. Now, I need to make some things clear before, you know, people panic or anything like that. So very similar to the lawsuits that were brought against Coinbase and Binance and Kraken, you know, in which the SEC mentioned specific tokens, saying these were securities offerings. The cases haven't been brought against the teams or the foundations behind those tokens directly yet. What's happening is it's going to people who are selling the tokens on the secondary market, not the initial like offerings of the tokens or anything like that. So that's the first thing to remember. So this is not a lawsuit against Rocket Pool or Lido. This is a lawsuit in which Rocket Pool and Lido have been mentioned as providing securities through their staking products. This is not a lawsuit against the RPL or LDO tokens, and those two tokens have not been mentioned in this lawsuit as well. So this is strictly about the staking tokens that are available on MetaMask, and that's the situation there. Now, and initially, like instantly, it caused kind of ripples in the Rocket Pool community. Ace was in court mode saying all press is good press. Lee responded by saying, tell it to Biden. Obviously, this was the day after the debate. The LDO token crashed quite hard. RPL, you know, took a big step down as well. It wasn't good. And people were kind of upset. Like, we didn't really understand what was happening. Like, we hadn't seen the text of the lawsuit at this time. People were panicking quite a lot. Now, you know, screen caps of the text started to come through. And here was when, you know, the SEC talking about Rocket Pool. So it says, Lido and Rocket Pool each offer what are commonly referred to as liquid staking programs. Staking in the context of blockchain network refers to the commitment of the native crypto asset of the blockchain in order to act as a validator of transactions, blah blah blah. So there was then more mentions of Rocket Pool as well, and yeah, there was a whole lot of panic basically. Very quickly we started to get some ideas of what was going on. So Eleanor here said Consensys official statement about the SEC lawsuit says Consensys fully expected the SEC to follow through in its threat to claim our MetaMask software interface must register as a securities broker. The SEC has been pursuing an anti-crypto agenda led by ad hoc enforcement action. This is just the latest example of its regulatory overreach, a transparent attempt to redefine well-established legal standards and expand the SEC's jurisdiction via lawsuit. We are confident in our position that the SEC has not been granted authority to regulate software interfaces like MetaMask. We will continue to vigorously pursue our case in Texas for ruling on these issues because it matters not only to our company but the future success of Web3. Now, what's really interesting here is Coinbase lawsuit that the SEC brought against them. A part of that was thrown out. The part of that was thrown out was regarding the Coinbase wallet and how that is not a securities broker. Now, the same idea could be applied to the MetaMask wallet. And it really makes you think that the SEC is kind of like on loose ground here. They don't have a firm footing, like a firm legal footing. And then it makes you think, like, why are the SEC actually doing this? It's really disappointing and it's really angering. Jasper's initial response was, if the SEC couldn't win cases with Chevron, and we're going to talk about that at the end of the episode, and no trial, they have no chance trying to sue Consensys for offering staking through Rocket Pool and Lido Finance. And yeah, this is kind of where the discussion was at that point, right? Like that the SEC this is overreach and this is not going to go very well for the SEC once again. Later on during the day, as Jasper kind of dug through the paperwork and the lawsuit, he kind of read through it and started formulating a response to it. And he was kind of sharing some of the ideas that he had in trading and kind of putting together a response basically from the Rocket Pool perspective, which was absolutely amazing. And then a little while later, he actually released a tweet thread with this. He says, the SEC filings today, filled with factual errors and misleading statements, show concretely that the agency's incompetence is endangering investors. The most decentralized dApp on Ethereum is Rocket Pool and has more home stakers than Solana, Gnosis, Polygon, Avax, everything but Ethereum itself. In a sea of charlatans, Rocket Pool has pioneered true decentralization. In this post, I'll first explain why I believe rETH is not a security by analyzing all of the Halooo, Reeves, and the FIT21 criteria. Next, I'll explain several factual errors that the SEC has made in its lawsuit against Consensys with evidence. After this, I will say why Consensys will likely win on summary judgment by analyzing Coinbase victory. Finally, I will explain how, just like Tornado Cash, Rocket Pool is unstoppable. Neither the Rocket Pool DAO, nor Rocket Pool Ltd, nor the SEC, nor any US or international court has the power to stop people from running nodes at home or holding rETH in their wallet. Permissionless, decentralized, censorship resistant. By the end of this thread, I hope you walk away with the knowledge that the SEC is hollow, Ethereum is the future, and Rocket Pool is enabling it. If you prefer a single long article, you can check it out here. So Jasper's tweet gained a lot of traction, 37,000 views, 340 likes, 77 retweets as well. And then the thread is quite long. So he also, like Jasper said, he put it in blog form, which you can read here. And it says, no step on Nook, smart contract, dumb lawsuit, SEC versus rETH. Jasper's got a great way with words. So like I said, this is quite a long article. So, he explains the different prongs of the Howey test, investment money, common enterprise, expectations of profit, efforts of the others. And he says, how it fails, the Howey test. Then there's the Reeves test and motivations of the seller and buyer, the plan of distribution, the expectations of the public, an alternative regulatory regime. And he says that it fails the Reeves test as well. And then with FIT21, we covered this, these 5 prongs of decentralization. It says the last of the 3 is FIT21. Of the 3, FIT is the only one that is still hypothetical. I'm including it as I believe to be a highly robust test of decentralization. And with this as well, he, makes the case that Rocket Pool is the closest of any, the rETH, and is the closest of any token basically to meet the standard of decentralization. So he finishes his paper by saying the SEC has errors, and like a lot of errors basically in its understanding of Rocket Pool and its understanding of what's happening here. And then he argues why this should be a summary judgment, why the judge should just throw it out because of the Coinbase ruling that I just mentioned below. And he says, finally, I want to end this thread essay with a note on injunctive relief. Even if Consensys somehow loses, and even if the SEC goes after Rocket Pool directly, there is little that any court can do to stop the system from autonomously running. And he says, just like Tornado Cash, even though it's been sanctioned and added to blacklists, the software is still there, it's still immutable, it's still going, no one can stop it. And it's the same situation with Rocket Pool. While the software isn't immutable, it's running, and the smart contracts are out there, and there's no way to stop them. So this was a really, really great analysis by Jasper. Jasper does start by saying that he is not a legal scholar, he's a medical student, and that should factor into what you take away from this. But if anyone is a lawyer and wants to comment on this, that would be really cool. So here Jasper then wanted to set a flag for Rocket Pool, and he said, will you and Paradigm stand up for the many thousands of home stakers running full nodes behind Rocket Pool? The war is here. Will you defend decentralization? This is crypto versus the SEC, and this is in reply to Charlie Noyes, who they had a little bit of a back and forth about home staking and what it meant for Rocket Pool. But I'm hoping that Jasper and others in the community are able to rally a broad support if it comes to that. Okay, moving on now, we're going to be talking about the GMC and its decision to award grants in this most recent round, and especially its focus on tokenomics work. So Chevron here put out a tweet saying the GMC is allocating $300,000 from the treasury that's the GMC's treasury, not the PDAO treasury, to support the Rocket Pool tokenomics rework. And they want to recognize the contributors thus far and encourage more community participation to help shape the future of the protocol. Now, what's going on over here? So this is the regular, monthly rewards sheet. And of course, this begins a 14-day challenge period where someone can challenge the GMC's decision if they want. It says this round, all applicants were deliberated by all subcommittees. This was due to the importance of the tokenomics and Rocket Lend applications that took up most of the slate and called for much back and forth discussion. The GMC had live threads recording member feedback and came together for a discussion call to resolve specific disagreements. So the headline here is that the GMC is allocating $300,000. And they want to seize the opportunity and get more work done on tokenomics. So here are the current members of the GMC. Here are the different applications. So we had a total amount requested of grants was $480,000, bounties was $100,000, and retros was $127,065. So this was one of our biggest request periods ever at $707,000 requested. And then here we have different approvals that came through. So the number one, the biggest one, well, the two biggest ones, but the biggest one here was a tokenomics rework grant for core contributors. So this is $125,000, and tokenomics rework grant for other contributors. This is $50,000. And then there's a retroactive award as well, tokenomics rework retroactive award for $125,000. Patches got $5,800 for optimistic work prior to May 12th. Contract verification with guides, $2,500, and Lee got $765 for support hours. Rocket Lend was deferred for future consideration, and then a few were declined, such as Long for Wisdom's release process RPIP, and some others as well. So one of them was actually declined. So then there was detailed breakdown of the rewards. I'll let you go and read those. I'm actually going to, we might come back to read the Rocket Lend one actually in a few minutes. But the tokenomics stuff has gone through. Here's some of the stuff about the tokenomics. It says the GMC has approved the proposal at a revised amount, recognizing it as critical investment for the protocol. Reduced milestone B to 50,000, down from 75,000. Will be awarding milestone A at the full amount of 75,000. Acceptance criteria will be defined as RPIPs that reach snapshot vote. To ensure clarity and avoid the misunderstandings. And then there's payment structure of 75,000 and 50,000. And then we have other contributors. This was requested at 100,000. We're giving 50,000, and this is GMC's approved this proposal. Funding has been adjusted, and the project will receive 25,000 upon completing milestone A, an additional 25,000 upon completing milestone B. The compensation for contributors will be categorized into preset tiers established by the GMC. So tier 1 will receive $4,000, tier 2 $2,000, and tier 3 will receive $1,000, and tier 4 then will receive $500, and tier 5 will receive $100. So the placement of contributors into these tiers will be determined based on a combination of rocket scrape data and private feedback surveys from core contributors. And then there's a retroactive award. So the funding here was 80,000 to 100,000, but the GMC upped this to 125,000, and this will be split determined by compiling peer review data, and the top 10 members from Rocket Scrape will be polled on their opinion of each of the members' contributions. If available, the content of the peer review questions will be verified by Noshua and Long for Wisdom to ensure efficiency, and members with higher scores will receive higher splits proportionally. The GMC has the ability to amend the compensation process if new information is brought to light by contributors. So this was actually really cool that, the GMC has put forward $300,000 for this work. It just shows how much we value this work in the protocol, and that's actually putting forward a really strong statement. So sticking with the topics of the tokenomics work, here we got some feedback from the team, and this was feedback that came last week and last night, and that I wasn't able to cover because I didn't have an episode on Friday, so sorry about that. So it said, Langus here said that here is some of our feedback. So the first question was about scope, about what is going to go into Saturn 1 and Saturn 2, and how much work there is going to be. And he says we obviously can reuse many elements, but still need to be incorporated with care, tested and re-audited. Additionally, time to market is an important factor. Consequently, we have to be critical about what is absolutely needed in Saturn 1 while maintaining product integrity. There are good reasons for these features being proposed, but if we want to ensure time to market, we may need to find compromises in some areas. Currently, there's very little flexibility in the specifications or the process. And then there's bond curves and how the penalties are going to apply. And Langus was saying this is my biggest concern. And then with UARS, which is Universal Adjustable Revenue Split, he says that this is the biggest worry about how who's going to control those dials and how they're going to be work. He says overall, from the implementation perspective, there are a couple of risk areas, but most of the implementation is relatively simple. The concern is around the size and current inflexibility of the scope when balancing time to market. I do feel we can work this through as we progress through development. Many of you know software development is a discovery process because of the cone of uncertainty. The issue with seemingly hard specs is that they do not adapt to new information. I'm advocating for a process that allows the specs to develop over time rather than being locked in, even if this is more a communication strategy for the PDAO than anything else. So then there was a lot of feedback in this about how certain aspects of it should be approached, and the feedback that Langus gave how it should be incorporated. I'm not going to go through that for the sake of brevity, but follow the links in the description to read the discussion. There was a lot of really interesting discussion back and forth, and eventually it led to more feedback from Langus, which happened overnight and this morning. So he says, with the commission, the reason we see it differently is that we see the commission rate as driven by competitive landscape and long-term trends. Neither of these are dynamic enough to need to change fast, need to change quickly. Relaxing the guard to allow the PDAO to make large increments would be fine, especially if the change is telegraphed to the market anyway. And he says, why is there such a big difference between the proposed starting value of 3.5% to a potential 7%? This is the issue with being able to change the commission quickly, is that we may end up reactive and over manage the situation. Fluctuations in the deposit pool are fine and to be expected. It is the long-term trend or threat of competition that is more important, and these changes are simply not that dynamic and should be considered carefully. And then he goes on to talk about the development process, about how it could work. And he says, what I had in mind is that the PDAO votes on the rework generally, essentially instructs the team to make it so, with the communication that functionality is indicative and specs may change. Regular touch points and communication. The PDAO votes on Saturn 1 releases with the specification locked down. And he says this is the way to go forward with that. So Long for Wisdom then had some thoughts, then you can read those. So definitely go and check out that discussion that's coming up around that as well. There's some interesting stuff there. And then still staying on the topic of tokenomics, Mike here from 1KX had some clarifications in trading about some of the discussion that had come up around their proposal. So he then lets people know that there's a discussion ongoing about their proposed changes and whether RPL should be required as collateral when adding validators and how that's going to work. And then in reply to me, he says, I don't want to spam trade. Yeah, he says, I'm a regular Rocket Fuel listener. It's been exciting to hearing you discuss the proposal. I just want to touch on something from last week's weekly orbit around the 30-minute mark where you said 1KX are proposing that they set up some kind of RPL vault that people can borrow from. He said, I'd like to clarify, we're not proposing a vault or a service that we operate and take commission from. The idea with delegation is to have a contract which facilitates peer-to-peer delegation, a shelling point for people searching for whale marriages, 2.0, like shrimps included. Whale marriages have already started, allowing node operators to onboard without RPL exposure. He says, congrats to Snow and Halooo, but they're high friction in terms of setup. How much protocol growth could we unlock if that friction did not exist? So he says he saw on Rocket Fuel that someone is looking for 20,000 RPL marriage. And what if that 20,000 can come from a bunch of small holders instead of a single whale? Instead of waiting for the full 20,000 from one person, they could receive smaller chunks of RPL from smaller holders. This would let them spin up validators as each sufficient batch of RPL was received. ETH-only node operators could onboard faster. The protocol could grow faster and a group of RPL holders could benefit instead of a single whale. I was thinking of pitching the tagline Tinder for whale marriages, but was not sure if it was a bit confusing metaphor. Some of the whales might be 50 shrimp in a trench coat. Then this idea is actually going to be explored in a special episode that should be coming out on Monday afternoon. So I'm not going to talk a little bit too much about like the feedback for this, but definitely keep your eyes open for a special tokenomics Rocket Fuel episode. So I think that's going to be really exciting for you all. Moving on, there's so much to cover today. Moving on, Langus here says, hey everyone, a new era is upon us. So this is talking about on-chain voting and what is like getting it all initialized and set up. He says the Houston release delivered protocol DAO on-chain voting, and shortly the PDAO will be enabled to vote on Snapshot for meta governance and vote on-chain to make protocol changes. He says before we can enable PDAO voting, we need node operators to initialize their voting power in the new system and update their signaling addresses that are used to vote in Snapshot. It says we provided a helpful guide and support node operators to initialize their voting power. So here then there's a Medium article. It says once enough node operators have initialized the voting power, the core team will enable protocol DAO voting and pass the torch to the PDAO. Decentralized governance is not just a necessity but a fundamental aspect of our DNA. It's what makes us a community-driven protocol that truly represents the collective voice of its node operators. And then Nangus goes on to say we're excited to see where this evolution in our governance model takes us. Rocket Pool, which is awesome. So thank you for that, Langus. And then here is the Medium article that Langus promised. Let me just change the camera so you can see it a little bit more clearly. And then there's a TLDR. It says the current Snapshot address is being deprecated. Node operators will need to initialize their voting power, set their PDAO signaling address, set their delegate if delegating to another node operator. And initially, PDAO on-chain voting will be disabled until enough vote power is initialized. So this is a guide on how to do it. First explains how the voting will work and how it's all going to look. And then it tells you how to initialize your voting. So there's step-by-step guides. So Rocket Pool, PDAO, initialize voting. And then it tells you like the signaling address, the snapshot signing address, the EIP, Selmon 2 signature, etc. And then you can do the delegation stuff as well. So all the information is in this article for you to read it. So definitely give that a read. Set up your voting stuff soon. So the sooner you do that, the sooner the PDAO can take control of the voting and take it out of the team's hands, which is really exciting. Okay, so a little while ago we were talking about the GMC rewards and we were saying about how Rocket Lend, which was a protocol designed by Ramana, which was kind of similar to what 1KX are suggesting. So what happened here is that was deferred. So Ramana, I think, was really disheartened by this, and he says, looks like the decision from the GMC is in, and it's essentially says that the project cannot go ahead without a project manager. So unless someone steps up, it's going to die. So let's actually go back and have a look at what the GMC's response says. And it says this, it says, The GMCs decided to defer the application and request the applicant to provide more evidence to justify the cost. Specific concerns included the relationship between Rocket.Lend, rETH mini pools, and NodeSet, as well as the current appetite for borrowing following recent liquidations. Clarification on the necessity and justification of the fee, potential revenue models for the GMC PDAO, and detailed loan terms are also needed. There is uncertainty about the project's impact on TVL and user experience, with insufficient evidence of demand. If no significant new information is provided in the next round, the application may be declined, and we recommend those who support it consider funding it independently. We also suggest discussing a potential audit at a lower cost and exploring alternative funding models. Specifically, the GMC would like the applicant to submit the following for review: clear audit price, identification of a committed project manager, and detailed fee structure. So going back to Ramana's comments here, he was quite disappointed, quite disheartened by what he heard, but Epinef and other members of the GMC started replying and saying it's a deferral, not a rejection. He says, I think my major concern is getting enough uptake to justify this being the highest funded project from the GMC to date, with now the second highest. He says options are one, overruling through a PDAO, or trying to show there's a market for this. Honestly, a lot of angry DMs about our decision from community members might show that as well. Ramana says, it's fine. I agree that the project needs a manager. I was hoping the GMC would help with finding one, but that was a long shot. And I guess in retrospect, it makes sense that the GMC can agree, yep, you need a manager. Try coming back to us if you find one. And Epinef says that's not unreasonable. But yeah, that's kind of where it went. And there was a couple of ideas of who might be able to become a project manager for Ramana, but it looked like that wasn't going to happen. Maybe, I'm not sure exactly. Here, Ramana went on to say, also I get that it's a deferral, not a rejection. I just think I want a bit of space to express some feelings here, not necessarily try to ask for any actions or judge anyone. I tried really hard to ensure the protocol would be ready to deploy basically as soon as Houston went live, since that was the one technical requirement. And because the protocol is most valuable between, no, he means Rocket.Lend. He says, because Rocket.Lend is most valuable between Houston and Saturn, of course I will say it's still valuable after Saturn. He says, I think I succeeded on the technical side of meeting this deadline. I feel sad and demoralized that this is so very far from sufficient. All the difficulty in actually getting it usable is not in building it, but rather in finding a manager, getting a budget to work with, and all that entails, like doing market research, advertising, and figuring out the legal and economic aspects of protocol fees. He said, I didn't get concrete info on how far it was from possible to launch until after Houston was launched. And Epinef said heard, and here he says, this is just the reality of the situation. I think that's why I need a partner with someone who thrives on doing the other stuff and is willing to work with me or hire me or build the things that actually need to be built, or can channel the other tasks into a format I can execute on that is motivating. And then Phil Cares gave some support, saying, I often think about what a treasure you are in programming things and getting code done. I also often think about how we can work together on something cool and easy to implement, but I haven't had the right idea yet. Sad to see you so demotivated now. So yeah, this is kind of upsetting. And yeah, this was a project that, I've shown support for in Rocket Fuel, and I think that it would be really useful for the protocol. The GMC wanted more information, and as things stood at the time, Ramana was quite disheartened about whether or not that would be available. And then eventually he said, it might be time to move on from Rocket Pool. I need to find jobs that actually pay. And he said that he'll be needing money with the RPL price going down as well and not being as strong as he had hoped. That might be what's necessary. But then there was some hope as well, hopefully, for Ramana. So I'm hoping that there are things that can happen where he can find someone and go forward with this project. Okay, here we had this post from Valdorf in reply to Hoppel Hasi, and there was some discussion going on a couple of days ago about the rETH ETH ratio and why it looks like it's not moving on the website. And this was an issue that we mentioned in Rocket Fuel last week, where it seems like some of the ODAO members aren't providing the prices the way they're supposed to. Valdorf had a comment here. It seems like the ODAO nodes are missing balance submissions are a good bit more than I'd expect. The successful cases have also not had the margins I'd expect. He says I put together some data for the ODAO and team to debug with. So Valdov says, thank you for bringing it up, and I'm sorry that this actually happened. And Hopalhasi says, I just had a look and it seems to me that the protocol ratio is currently back on track. Is this correct? Just for better understandings, are the rewards for rETH holders from the past 2 days included or lost? And then Ramana says, as long as they didn't sell the RPL at the bad, i.e. not updated rate between, they should be fine. The price is determined by the actual balances, which includes all the rewards. Rewards did not stop accumulating even though the price wasn't being updated. So that was what's going on there. And then Val here says it's back on track and no rewards are lost. There will be a modest error in the mint burn ratio used for that specific day. Essentially always a small error that built up across 24 hours. Here it got built up for 48 hours. It says error doesn't result in lost funds in the system either. It's just a specific mint is burning, getting a teensy bit too much or little, and the rest of rETH holding absorbing that basically, depending on the time of day. So hopefully that is an issue that will be fixed, is fixed. I'll definitely keep an eye out for that and let you all know if something changes with that. Okay, Mentor popped into the Rocket Pool Discord with some alpha this morning, and he said that he has the domain rocketeers.eth, and if anyone who owns one of the OG Rocketeers, they can now go and mint a subdomain for that. So he says more details on the Rocketeer Discord announcement channel, but the TLDR is you connect a Rocketeer wallet to namespace.tech and you can mint as many ENS subdomains as you want, and they're unruggable. So this is really cool. So if you wanted, whack.rocketeers.eth, you could now do that. You could do whatever subdomain you wanted, provided you owned one of the OG Rocketeers, and you can mint as many of them as you want. So Kevster, of course, had the genius idea right away. He says we can mint the cool names and sell them to the Yankees. And Mentor says, I didn't set the rules. If you want, you can go. If you want to go ham, you can. And then Halooo said he's going to register goham.rocketeers.eth. So that was pretty cool. And I really like this idea. I think Rocketeers are one of the really nice projects that came out of Rocket Pool before launch, all those years ago. And it's amazing how many of our community members still use their Rocketeers as their profile pictures. I, of course, own a Rocketeer. I actually own multiple Rocketeers, I think, if you count the second generation as well. Okay, as we get, every couple of weeks, we've got a new DeFi update on rETH. This is from stakerocketpool.eth, and Regex Buster is the one who provides this data. He says PancakeSwap once again is our current highest APR on Rocket Pool risk optimized DeFi sheet, and you can earn up to 17.77% APR. And then there's information on all the other pools and how you can get 10% on Balancer. On Optimism, you can get 10 to 12% on Balancer and Arbitrum. So those are, of course, really cool pools. On Mainnet, you can get 8% on Gamma, and of course, there's that PancakeSwap with 17.77%, which is really exciting. Please remember, any DeFi opportunities that you interact with, they're risky. You could lose everything you put in. And me mentioning it here is not an endorsement of those products. And of course, I have not been paid by any of these products as well. So just wanted to make that clear for you all. Okay, next we have news here of a new node operator that registered, and this was 0x Fornax. So for those of you who know, Fornax is a smart node developer and smart contract developer with the Rocket Pool team. He's the most recent no, actually, that's not true now. He's one of the more recent hires for the team. And of course, Thomas was hired more recently than that in a more junior position, but here Fornax set up a node. Let's actually have a look to see what's going on with that node, because I want to see if there's any validators on it. My suspicion is that it's just for testing purposes. I remember Joe, when he was in the smart node position before, he had multiple validators set up. It seems like RocketScan doesn't want to load right now, so I can't show you all whether there's any validators attached to this. Oh yeah, here we go. Yeah, so my suspicion was right. He set up the node, and it's probably for testing purposes. instead of, or maybe for the vote purposes instead of for validation purposes. Of course, people want to keep their validator secret, which is their node address is secret, which is perfectly understandable. So welcome, Fornax. I'm sure you've been around for a while. Anyway, okay. Here we have, let me see what we have actually here. Yes, Halooo. Wait, where did it go? Let me just refresh this page. This sometimes happens. Halooo has been working on simulating the rewards for our RPL every month and what it's going to look like. So he made a bot. So that link is bad for some reason. And this is also bad. Wait, what have I gotten here? I'm sorry about this. Yeah, here we go. Okay, so Halooo has been working on getting a rewards expectation kind of thing from as part of Rocket Watch, and here he's put out the tool. So the command for this is simulate rewards, simulate_rewards. So if you run that in trading, then you can put in the node address and it will tell you. So he says, simulated RPL rewards for 0x patches.eth as holding 50,000 RPL and 25 AETH validators. This is based on data from 41 minutes ago, blah, blah, blah. And then it shows you how much RPL is expected to be earned and how that's going to work. So this was a tool that a lot of people in the community were asking for quite a while. And now that it's here, I think that's really cool. And I think people will start using it quite a lot. So good job, Halooo, for more work that you're doing. Okay, next we have an update out of Lighthouse. So if you are a Lighthouse user, you can now upgrade to version 5.2.0, and this is a medium priority update with name Kyle, and it says that there's some bug fixes and people who had sync issues are recommended to upgrade, and then there's a list of bug fixes here. So like I said, it's a medium priority update. If you want to update it, you can update it in your smart node directly, or you can just wait for the new version of the smart node that will have the updated version on that. And then the last of the Rocket Pool news for today is a POAP for the smart node update. And this is a new series of POAPs that Chevron is designing after the last upgrade master Raffle that went out. So he says the design has been revealed for the next series of Rocket Pool smart node update, and don't forget to update your nodes. So it looks like a cool like European medieval winter scene or late night scene, and then there's a blazing Rocket Pool logo in there. So that's really cool. Okay, next we're going to move to some staking news. So this is big news for all node operators who are staking from home and are using SSH to like go into their node machine. So the way that nodes are normally set up is you have a node machine that you don't really touch, and then you do remote login to it using SSH, like using your laptop or whatever other device you have, right? Like you don't actually touch the node machine very often. That's the way that most people use it. Now, what we have here is a story of OpenSSH and there being a vulnerability in that. I don't understand the full details of the vulnerability. It just says that there's a vulnerability. It's version 4.4p1. It's vulnerable to a signal handler race condition, and you basically need to upgrade. Now, this is really serious. You don't want a vulnerability in the way you sign into your node machine. The last thing you want is for someone to get in there and play around with it. The good thing is that there's not much they can do if you have your withdrawal address set up properly, but like it's still not good that can happen. So what do? You can run the following code, sudo apt update and sudo apt upgrade and sudo system CTL restart SSHD. So that's what you need to do, and then that should be it. So definitely do that as soon as possible. Like, don't wait on this, because the last thing you want is there to be problems with your node machine that might occur. And then Papash here is saying that I restarted SSHD just in case. I didn't bother to check if the update had already done it, but it doesn't hurt to restart twice. So that's as simple. Like, you just follow here these lines of code from Ramana, and then everything should be okay and you should be done. So definitely do this as soon as possible. Like I said, I think, as far as I understand, they shouldn't be able to like steal your crypto or anything, but the last thing you want is there to be a vulnerability on your node and for you to not address it as soon as possible. Okay, moving on to some other staking news now. On Thursday's episode, we talked about gravETH, which is, the one from NodeSet, gravETH, and Stakewise. Well, these guys went on a full marketing blitz on Thursday, so I wasn't able to cover it on Friday's episode. But gravETH here had a tweet thread out, kind of explaining what it is and how it works, and they've got their AI generated pictures, and then we also got a tweet thread from NodeSet coming out as well, and also from Stakewise. So Stakewise retweeted gravETH and has said that hundreds of solo operators run nodes for this vault, making one of the most decentralized staking pools in Ethereum. Stake ETH, earn rewards with gravETH and mint OS ETH for borrowing, farming, or restaking, which is pretty cool. So congratulations to them. One of the things that was happening on Thursday was a NodeSet. There was a Discord announcement here from Stakewise saying everyone's Stakewise Vault ecosystem is making leaps in development. We're excited to see gravETH protocol launch gravETH in partnership with NodeSet and land some hundreds of solo node operators supporting Ethereum decentralization. And then there's a link. So they were doing a blitz on Twitter, on Discord, on all these different places, and then you can actually see that there were stakes and deposit transactions coming through. This one was from Ethereal Capital for 400 ETH. So there was a big chunk of ETH that was getting put into their vaults, and that's a nice $1.4 million, pretty casual. But that person then minted gravETH instead of the OS ETH that you have the option of doing. And if you have a look at their vault right now, it started off at 0, and then it had 32 ETH in there for a week, and then it jumped up to around 300 ETH, and now it's at around 700 ETH. So it's been flat for the last few days. The rewards that will come in need a few days for it to catch up, once all the node operators are online. So you might not see that they have the best APY yet, but if you give it a few days, once all their validators are online, then there shouldn't be a drag on the APR anymore. And then also, I guess they're waiting to see if there'll be more deposits coming in, which I'm sure that gravETH and NodeSet are hoping they will be coming in very soon. They had a community call, and this was happening the other day, and they talked about how they're going to manage their node operators and how everything works. And then they took a couple of questions at the end as well, and I asked the question about Constellation, and they said that it's probably a little bit further away than they hoped because there's been some delays with some code stuff that they're doing, and part of that has to do with voting and how the Constellation node operators will not actually be involved in Rocket Pool governance at all. So even though they'll have ETH and RPL staked, they won't actually be involved in voting, which I think is actually really, really great. And that is taking some time. So it looks like the Constellation launch might be pushed back a couple of months. And sadly, we're going to have to wait a little bit longer for that. But I think it's a really, really good development that they won't actually be involved in Rocket Pool governance, because I think there might have been some conflicts of interest arising out of that. And thankfully, those fears that were minimal, at this point in time, have been completely removed. So that's really cool. So good job, NodeSet guys. Congratulations on everything. And I hope you get a lot more deposits soon. Here's a community call. So there was information about that, and then here Via gave an update about it, saying they announced direct incentives program with gravETH for node operators. So if you know someone with 50 plus ETH, reach out to the team. Self-referral is also okay, and if you stick around for 1 year, then you get a share of that pot. So you'll either get gravETH governance tokens, or and the numbers are to be announced, or part of a commission percentage up to a referrer to to desire, and that's interesting. So that's a really nice point. So 50 plus ETH, you can get some extra rewards as being part of a referral program there. Okay, next we got some updates on the ETH ETF. This is some Ethereum news now, and it looks like there's been a little bit of a delay with the ETH ETFs. So here Nate Garassi says some additional details on spot ETH ETF approval timeline. Issuers have been asked to submit S1 amendments by July 8th, and there would still be one more round of filings after that before ETFs can start trading. So never ceases to be a widening path. So the idea was that the S1 forms were really light on edits, and all the operators got those done and submitted last week. The idea was that the SEC would approve them on Friday, but that didn't happen. And then it looks now like they're asking for another round of amendments that will be due on the 1st of July. Now, I can't imagine there being much more to be done after that. So it seems like the ETF should start trading the week after that, so maybe July 15th, the week of July 15th. However, I'm not sure exactly how it's going to play out. I was listening to Bankless today with the guys from Bitwise and Galaxy, and they seem to think that it should trade next week, but maybe when they recorded, they didn't have this full information. So it looks like it might be a week later than that. But I don't think that's much of a problem. These are, long-term things. This isn't like some instant gratification thing, and waiting another couple of weeks, I think isn't too big a deal. Okay, next we have this update from Aave. So over the weekend, there was actually, I think on Thursday last week, there was a bug with Aave, and here there's an announcement saying many users reported seeing the above screen in the app today. This is 99% likely to be an error, and we're working on resolving it. Funds are safe. This is just a user interface issue that will be resolved shortly. In the meantime, please try alternative user interface links linked in FAQs and links. Beware of scammers who may DM you. Always open a ticket in help if unsure. And then there's the screenshot is saying blocked access. This address is blocked on Aave, app.aave.com, because it is associated with one or more blocked activities. So this was a bug. Everything was safe, and I'm sure it's fixed by now. Okay, moving on to some wider news now to finish up, well, actually not quite to finish up, but almost to finish up the episode. So Bankless here on Friday put out a post saying the US Supreme Court overturns the Chevron Deference. Chevron Deference is a US administrative law that gives power to federal agencies, ruling when a particular law is ambiguous. This is overturned. The SEC and federal agencies no longer have this rulemaking ability. So this voted along party lines, where conservatives voted 6 in favor of overturning it, and the liberals voted 3 in favor of maintaining it. And that's kind of what ended up happening, is that this has gone through. Now, you can actually read the full text of the judgment from the Supreme Court here, with this PDF linked, and this is actually I've actually got another take on this as well. This is from Paul Greywall, who is the Chief Legal Officer for Coinbase. He says, Chevron's presumption is misguided because agencies have no special competence in resolving statutory ambiguities. Courts do. And they said the writing is on the wall. So this was just to show that, Coinbase is aggressive in this situation against the SEC, especially after Chevron is being overturned. And there was another ruling of the Supreme Court last week as well, said that with matters with agencies, there can be jury trial instead of in a agency trial, or with those rules. So there's a bunch of stuff happening in the US right now that will impact crypto and impact the SEC like this. However, the findings of this are more wide-reaching than just about the SEC. Like, this impacts every governmental agency, and in some ways this is actually like a power grab from the executive branch of the government to the judicial branch of the government. So it's shifting like checks and balances in the way that the systems have been going for the last 40 years. Now, I've said some pretty strong things about this, but I'm not going to repeat them on Rocket Fuel, but you can go and find my comments or tweets when I've kind of talked about this, but this is actually a really, really big deal. That's more than just crypto. It's going to impact everything from like environmental legislation, transport, education, health stuff, drugs, pharmaceutical stuff, like a whole range of things. Like every governmental agency will be impacted by this, and it's going to be really interesting to see how that all plays out. Okay, and I'm finally going to end today's episode not with a raffle, but with this price lock-in for the raffle. So it's July 1st. So normally I'd be doing the raffle today. Cheers, however, didn't provide me with the list of raffle tickets. So as you can see here on Binance, the price is $19.85. Actually, let me just refresh this to see what the most up-to-date price is. Yeah, okay, $20.09, as you can see on the screen. So if I do 100 divided by $20.09, that is equal to 4.977 RPL, 4.98 RPL. So you'll be getting just under 5 RPL each for contributions this month. I'm hoping to do the raffle in tomorrow's episode, which is on July 2nd, which is Tuesday. But I gotta wait for Cheers to provide me with that information as soon as I can. But yeah, that'll be the raffle prize locked in, just under 5 RPL, 4.98 RPL. So on that note, I'm going to end today's episode. So thank you all for watching, listening, and being part of the Rocket Fuel community. I hope you all had a lovely long weekend, and I will see you all tomorrow. Bye.